So I've been thinking a lot about this, and also because like people I've been seeing on my FYP, people doing the voiceover with, I wasn't like, what was I supposed to do, Stephen? I was out of my mind in love. Because we're never gonna hear her say something like that about Jeremiah ever. It's just not gonna happen. I'll like put money down right now. And so I think it's like, it's almost false advertising, like, because I think ultimately this story, which was what it was in the books, really, it's about these two people trying to find their way back to one another, and ultimately finding their way back to one another and then being together. So it's less about a girl picking between two brothers and more about these two people finding their way back together. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, and there's no way it's going to be anything else other than that. And like that's the thing, like, Emmy, like, you don't have to read the books. I mean, that's the storyline of the book, but it's like even more emphasized in the show. So there's no way she's ending up with Jeremiah. There's no way. It's almost ridiculous. Again, like, I'm just repeating myself, but it's ridiculous to humor the idea that she'll end up with Jeremiah. And I just don't think that's what the story is. Like, I don't think that's what we're supposed to be paying attention to. We're supposed to be paying attention to these two people who are deeply in love and often can't communicate that love based on, like, whatever's happening between them, based on grief, based on, their own failures of like people or whatever. So it's about these two people coming to this place of realizing, hey, I've made these mistakes, but ultimately I still love you and I still want to be with you. So again, it's not about a girl being torn between two brothers. That's not the storyline. It's about two people having to fight their way back to being together again. And like that whole Venus star metaphor too, like, the star might go away, but ultimately it just comes back up in the sky. So I think that's the metaphor of Belly and Conrad. Like, they might go away for a little bit, but ultimately they're going to come right back together, brighter than ever. Not to be really lame about it, but yeah, she's not picking Jeremiah. I'm so sorry to the Jeremiah girlies, but it's not happening.
Y'all are right. I've been focusing so much on the show lately. I keep forgetting about her being an unreliable narrator in the book, too. This makes me wonder if what we see in the show is actually how Conrad felt in the book. But, like, with the book, you really, really only get one side. Whereas in the show, even though it's from Belly's POV, you can see the way Conrad is acting. And we get a lot more of him in the show. Like, the breakup at prom, for example. Like, in the book, it's meant to feel like he absolutely intended to do that. Whereas in the show, not at all. But Belly automatically assumed he did. So what if he didn't even want to break up with her in the book either?
So, as a viewer of the show, I feel like this scene from last episode really sticks out to me when Belly's talking about her first kiss with Conrad, and she feels like she blacked out, and then she felt like she wasn't in her body, and then she goes into talking about her first kiss with Jeremiah, and the only thing that she could really come up with was that it was super hot, and she thought it would be weird because they had been friends for so long. As somebody that's seen this show multiple times, Belly is very much in love with Conrad. That is past and that is present day. That has not changed. The feelings are still very much there. I feel like it's a bit of a foreshadow moment. There may be some love between Belly and Jeremiah, but they will not be in love with each other. And then towards the end of the scene, Sky proceeds to ask Belly who she would kiss again if she had the chance. Would she kiss Cam? Would she kiss Conrad? Or would she kiss Jeremiah? Instead of straight out saying she would kiss Jeremiah, Belly proceeds to say no comment, which I thought was interesting because if Belly really had feelings for Jeremiah and like wanted to be with him, she would have automatically said Jeremiah, but it's not. It's Conrad. She's always loved Conrad. It will always be Conrad. There's really no touching that. So I feel like comments like this, people forget a lot that Conrad was not the one that broke up with Belly. Belly very much initiated the breakup that she had between her and Conrad. I'm not blaming Belly in any way for her feeling the way that she was. And I'm not blaming Conrad for not being fully present in that moment with Belly. I think Belly had wanted him to be fully present, and I think Conrad was just very numb to everything. And he was like literally going through so much at the time. He was going through very early stages of grief. And I just feel like people forget that he never actually really acknowledged it. He just kind of like let her leave because he knew that he could not make her happy in that moment. She had wanted him to be present, but he just couldn't be, which I totally understand why he couldn't be. He was trying so hard to be there for her and to do everything that like she had wanted him to do, but I think in that moment it was all just way too much for him.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I definitely agree. And I said in another video after this, someone had commented that Conrad told Belly about Jeremiah just because he wanted her. And not to sound like a total bitch, but that was not only wrong, that was stupid and wrong. Like, he had every right to tell her about Jeremiah. He wasn't doing that out of selfish reasons at all. You know, he was looking out for her when he told her that. Like, he wanted to save her from a marriage full of lies. He didn't want her to get cheated on again in the future. My whole thing was like, does it become selfish when Conrad puts his feelings into the mix of everything else that's happening? You know, does that, like, overwhelm Belly even more? But, I mean, ultimately, I'm glad he did it. Because, you know, like, his feelings have always been a big insecurity for her. And what I think held him back from, you know, confessing his feelings earlier in the summer was him thinking, like, she could have a happy life with Jeremiah. And he didn't want to ruin things for them if they were going to have a happy life together. You know, as much as it hurt him to see, he did ultimately want her to be happy. And his brother, too. I mean, he loves his brother so much, even though Jer can be immature little shit sometimes. But everything changed when he found out Jeremiah cheated. And I used to be confused as to why he did, like, confess his feelings in that moment when, you know, the main reason for the conversation was to just let her know that Jeremiah had cheated. But, you know, the whole reason he drove Belly away and, like, let her go and, you know, was semi-okay with seeing her with Jeremiah was because he didn't feel like he had it in her to love her like she deserved to be loved. But he thought Jeremiah did. And to find out that he was wrong about that, I think, you know, spurred him into action and woke him up to the fact that, you know, it's not his job to make decisions for other people. And while confessing his feelings is a little bit selfish, I think, just like in terms of the timing and everything, he didn't have any ill intentions with it, though. Like, I think he basically knew she wasn't gonna, like, choose him in that moment. And he also knew he was taking, like, a gigantic risk. But, like I said, I think it just woke him up and he wanted her to know all of the options. And, you know, he was showing her he regret what happened. And everything is on the table for her. It is finally gonna be her decision. Because he did make that decision for her 2 years ago. At least in the book, because she very well could have gone back to Conrad. So yeah, like a bunch of complicated feelings for that whole scene in the book. Though ultimately, I don't think Conrad did much wrong. Especially telling her about Jeremiah, like, that wasn't wrong at all.